Rome had conquered Gaul, crushed Carthage, dominated the Mediterranean, but there was one enemy that made Roman legions turn back. In the desert wastes beyond the Euphrates, horse archers moved like ghosts across sand and stone. They struck without warning, vanished without trace. When Marcus Licinius Crassus led 7 legions into Parthian territory in 53 BC, he thought he was hunting barbarians. He was wrong. The Parthians were hunting him. What happened at Carrhae would haunt Roman nightmares for generations. Why did the richest man in Rome march into the Syrian desert? Who was the young general who outmaneuvered 40,000 Roman soldiers? How did a single day shatter Rome's eastern ambitions? The Parthian Empire stretched from the Euphrates to the Indus, controlling the Silk Roads that fed Roman luxury. Their capital Ctesiphon sat astride trade routes worth millions of denarii annually. Horse archery dominated their military doctrine. Every Parthian noble learned to shoot backward from a galloping horse before he could walk properly. Their composite bows used horn, sinew, and wood laminated in precise layers. Draw weight reached 160 pounds. Range extended beyond 400 paces with bodkin points. The cataphract, heavy cavalry, wore scale armor from horse to rider. Iron plates overlapped like fish scales, weighing 80 pounds per suit. Behind them rode clouds of light horse archers, the backbone of Parthian power. Parthian horses came from Nisaean bloodlines, bred for endurance across desert terrain. They could cover 60 miles per day carrying full equipment. Riders learned mounted archery through childhood games, shooting clay targets while galloping, picking up arrows from ground at full speed, firing accurately while hanging from saddle sides. Combat doctrine emphasized mobility over shock action. Strike fast, retreat faster. Let the enemy exhaust himself chasing shadows across empty ground. Crassus wanted glory. He had crushed Spartacus, made fortunes in Roman property, formed the first triumvirate with Pompey and Caesar, but Caesar conquered Gaul. Pompey dominated the sea. Crassus needed a victory to match theirs. Parthia looked perfect, wealthy, divided by civil war, ripe for plunder. Intelligence reports suggested internal weakness. King Orodes had just defeated a rival claimant, Mithridates III, in brutal fighting around Seleucia. Surely, a divided kingdom could not resist Roman discipline. The Senate opposed the war. Crassus ignored them. Marcus Porcius. Cato called it unprovoked aggression. Cicero warned of desert dangers. The people voted against eastern expansion. Crassus held proconsular imperium in Syria. He could wage war without Senate approval. In 55 BC, he marched east with 7 full legions, auxiliary troops, Gallic cavalry, 4th Legion, nicknamed the Skylark, 7th Legion, veterans of Gallic Wars, 1st Legion, recruited from Latin colonies. Each legion carried roughly 4,000 men at full strength, 800 cavalry, auxiliary archers numbering 2,000, 42,000 men total, the largest Roman army to cross the Euphrates since Lucullus. If you value documented ancient warfare history like this, subscribe. It's the best way to support our work. Also comment from which city you're hearing this from. This script is researched and factual, using sources from Plutarch and Cassius Dio. Now back to the story. The Parthian throne belonged to Orodes II, but Surena commanded the army that would face Rome. 28 years old, from the Surena family, hereditary commanders of Parthian forces. His grandfather had defeated Antiochus VII decades earlier using identical tactics. He had captured Seleucia on the Tigris for Orodes just months earlier with pure cavalry warfare. No siege engines, no infantry assault, just horse archers who starved the city into submission. His personal retinue included 10,000 horse archers, 1,000 cataphracts, 30,000 servants and camp followers. Each archer carried 60 arrows in laminated quivers. Each cataphract rode Nisaean horses worth 50 gold pieces in Roman markets. Surena understood mobility warfare like Caesar understood siegecraft. He would use the desert itself as a weapon. Surena's tactical doctrine came from centuries of steppe warfare, feigned retreats to draw enemies into kill zones, envelopment movements using superior mobility, concentrated archery fire against isolated formations. His scouts included Scythian mercenaries who could track movement across stone ground, Arab guides who knew every water source between Damascus and Babylon. The young general had studied Roman methods through captured prisoners from earlier border skirmishes. He knew legion formations, marching speeds, supply requirements. He planned to turn Roman discipline against itself. Spring 53 BC. Crassus crossed the Euphrates at Zeugma with his main force. The Armenians offered mountain routes, supply bases, guides who knew Parthian movements. Crassus refused. He wanted direct approach through Mesopotamian desert, faster march to Seleucia, shorter supply lines from Syria. The desert stretched flat and empty under Syrian sun. Perfect tank country, modern generals would call it. Perfect horse archer country, Surena called it. The Roman column moved southeast from Icne toward Carrhae. 7 legions in standard formation, heavy infantry in center blocks, light troops screening flanks, Gallic cavalry scouting ahead, baggage trains protected in rear. Traditional deployment for civilized warfare. Each legion carried 25 days of grain rations, medical supplies, siege equipment, engineering tools. Water came from Syrian wells, carried in bronze vessels that heated like ovens under desert sun. The legionaries wore standard kit, lorica, hamada mail, bronze helmets, curved shields, gladi and pila. Armor that worked perfectly in Gallic forests became torture chambers in Mesopotamian heat. Daily marches covered 15 miles across flat desert terrain. No hills for cover, no forests for concealment, no rivers for water resupply except the distant Euphrates behind them. Perfect tank country, modern generals would call it. Perfect horse archer country, Surena called it. Roman scouts reported strange markers along their route, piles of white stones, wooden posts driven into hard ground, symbols carved in rock faces, boundary warnings in languages no Roman could read. Surena shadowed the Romans for 3 days without attacking. His scouts reported legion strength, formation patterns, march discipline. The Romans saw dust clouds on horizons, flickering movement that vanished when investigated, arrows found in abandoned campsites, no bodies, no prisoners, no pitched battles, just the feeling of being watched by invisible eyes. June 9th, 53 BC, near the town of Carrhae in northern Mesopotamia. Temperature already 90 degrees at sunrise. Crassus deployed for battle at dawn, expecting traditional infantry engagement. 7 legions formed testudo formations, shields locked overhead and on flanks, Gallic cavalry on wings, auxiliary archers interspersed with heavy foot. Standard Roman doctrine against Eastern armies. The deployment covered 2 miles front to back, presenting a bristling wall of bronze and iron. Legion standards flew in desert wind, silver eagles that had conquered half the world. Today, they would meet something different. Roman battle doctrine assumed enemies would advance to contact, fight hand-to-hand, win or die in place like civilized soldiers. Eastern armies might use more archers than usual, but they would still close for melee combat eventually. Every successful Roman general from Scipio to Caesar had proven this formula. Heavy infantry backed by engineering superiority could defeat any barbarian horde. But Surena brought something else entirely. The Parthian army appeared as morning mist burned off. 1,000 cataphracts in full armor led the advance. Horse and rider covered in overlapping iron scales. 12-foot lances, called cantos, held ready. Behind them rode 10,000 light horse archers in loose formation, composite bows strung, arrows nocked. They moved like water across stone, flowing around Roman positions without engaging directly. The battle opened with psychological warfare. Parthian war drums boomed across empty desert, hollow bronze kettles beaten with iron hammers, sound carried for miles in thin air. Roman veterans had heard Gallic war horns, Germanic battle cries. This was different. This sound came from the earth itself. Some legionaries began to break formation before the first arrow fell. Crassus ordered general advance. 7 legions moved forward in testudo. Shields raised against expected arrow storm, but the arrows did not fall. Instead, the cataphracts charged the Roman right wing, where Publius Crassus commanded Gallic cavalry. 12-foot lances against Celtic swords. Scale armor against leather and mail. The Gauls broke within minutes. Publius led 400 survivors in desperate retreat toward rocky ground 2 miles distant. Now the horse archers struck. 10,000 mounted bowmen circled Roman formations like wolves around wounded elk. They fired into packed legionary ranks from 200 paces. Composite bows drove bodkin points through Roman mail, through wooden shields, through bronze helmet cheek guards. The testudo formation became a death trap. Shields raised against arrows left legs and feet exposed. Shields lowered to protect legs, exposed heads and shoulders. There was no safe position. Roman archers returned fire but could not match Parthian range or mobility. Syrian auxiliaries carried simple wooden bows with effective range under 200 paces. Cretan mercenaries used composite bows but lacked horses for mobility. Heavy infantry tried to charge, but horse archers melted away, reformed, struck from new angles. The legions had trained to fight disciplined enemies who stood and died like civilized soldiers, Germanic tribes who charged with axes, Gallic warriors who fought in dense formations. These ghosts would not fight fair. They struck and faded and struck again until Roman formations bled from 1,000 cuts. Individual legionaries began removing armor pieces as heat stress mounted. Bronze helmets became unbearable. Mail shirts trapped body heat like furnaces. Shields grew too heavy to lift. Men collapsed inside their own protective equipment before Parthian arrows found them. Centurions tried to maintain discipline, but physics worked against them. Human beings cannot function in full armor at 120 degrees Fahrenheit while under constant missile fire. The sun climbed higher. Desert heat reached 120 degrees Fahrenheit inside Roman armor. Men collapsed from heat stroke before Parthian arrows found them. Water ran low. The nearest wells lay miles behind Parthian lines. Some legionaries threw down shields and weapons, begging for quarter. The horse archers gave none. Mercy was not part of their tactical doctrine. Midday brought fresh horror. Publius Crassus had found high ground near Carrhae village with his surviving Gauls. For 2 hours they held rocky positions against cataphract charges. Then Surena sent 2,000 horse archers to surround the hill. Composite bow fire from all sides. No escape routes. No reinforcements possible. Publius died with an arrow through his throat. His head went on to a Parthian spear point. The horse archers returned to the main battle carrying Publius Crassus's head on a lance. They rode close to Roman lines, shouting his name, displaying the dripping trophy. Marcus Crassus saw his son's head from 400 paces away. The richest man in Rome fell to his knees in Syrian sand. Command structure collapsed. Senior centurions tried to maintain discipline, but panic spread through exhausted ranks like wildfire through dry grass. Afternoon brought the killing stroke. Roman ammunition ran out, javelin supply exhausted, arrow stocks depleted, but Parthian arrows kept falling like desert rain. Surena had positioned 1,000 camels loaded with fresh arrows behind his battle line. Supply trains that moved with the horse archers, maintaining constant fire pressure. Each camel carried 4,000 arrows in waterproof containers, enough ammunition to sustain archery fire for 6 hours at combat rate. Romans had never faced logistics warfare on this scale. The arrow storm reached industrial intensity. 10,000 archers shooting 12 arrows per minute generated 2,000 arrows in flight at any moment. Bodkin points punched through bronze backing, split wooden shield rims, found gaps in overlapping mail links. Some arrows carried fire, pitch-soaked rags that ignited Roman equipment. Others trailed thin chains designed to tangle weapons. Parthian fletchers had developed specialized ammunition for every tactical situation. If you value documented ancient warfare history like this, subscribe. It's the best way to support our work. Also, comment from which city you're hearing this from. Now back to the story. Legion formation began to dissolve. Individual soldiers broke ranks, running for imagined safety in open desert. Horse archers rode them down like hunting dogs chasing deer. Others clustered in tight defensive circles, shields outward, waiting for death. The arrow storm never stopped. Bodkin points found gaps in every defense. Scale armor, ring mail. Bronze backing plates, nothing could stop focused Parthian fire. Crassus tried to negotiate. He sent envoys under white banners toward Parthian lines. Surena agreed to parley, but demanded the Roman commander come personally to discuss terms. It was obviously a trap. Roman officers begged Crassus to refuse, but the alternative was watching his army die arrow by arrow in the desert heat. He walked toward Parthian positions with a small escort. The parley meeting turned violent within minutes. Accounts differ on who struck first. Plutarch blames Parthian treachery. Cassius Dio suggests Roman desperation. The result was clear. Crassus died under Parthian swords beside a muddy stream near Carrhae village. His body was decapitated. His head joined his son's as a trophy. Command of 7 Roman legions passed to surviving officers who had no plan except retreat. Night fell over a desert carpeted with Roman dead. 20,000 legionaries killed, 10,000 captured and marched east to serve as slaves in Bactrian gold mines. 4,000 survivors reached Syrian fortress towns after wandering for days without water. The eagles of 7 legions became Parthian temple decorations, Rome's greatest military disaster since Cannae, but worse because it was preventable. Bodies lay scattered across 3 square miles of desert. Parthian scavengers moved through the killing field, collecting usable equipment, finishing wounded Romans, gathering arrows for reuse. Roman armor went to Parthian arsenals. Weapons became temple offerings. Silver Legion pay chests funded Surena's victory celebration. Even in death, Roman soldiers served Parthian interests. Crassus himself received special treatment. His severed head was filled with molten gold, symbolic punishment for his legendary greed. Parthian court records mention the ceremony. King Orodes displayed the golden skull during state banquets for visiting dignitaries. Roman ambassadors forced to drink from their former commander's remains. Diplomatic humiliation that matched military catastrophe. Surena returned to Ctesiphon in triumph. King Orodes received him with honors, gold, and a suspicion. The young general who destroyed Roman legions was becoming too popular with common soldiers, too dangerous to royal power. Within a year, Orodes had Surena executed on trumped charges. The horse archer commander who saved Parthian independence died by royal decree. Politics killed what Roman swords could not touch. The battle's impact echoed through decades. Rome abandoned eastern expansion for 50 years. Augustus later recovered the lost eagles through diplomacy, not warfare. Parthian horse archers became the standard against which Roman cavalry measured itself. The desert tactics that destroyed Crassus influenced military doctrine from Britain to Mesopotamia. Every Roman general studied Carrhae as an example of what could go wrong when civilization met nomad warfare. Roman military reforms followed directly from Carrhae lessons. Cavalry units expanded from 800 to 1,500 per legion. Auxiliary archers received composite bow training. Engineers developed mobile ballistae for anti-cavalry work. New tactical manuals included chapters on fighting horse archers, concentration of fire, coordination with cavalry, protection of flanks and rear. The ghost of Surena shaped Roman military thinking for 3 centuries. Parthian influence spread beyond tactics into grand strategy. Rome negotiated rather than conquered along eastern frontiers. Client kingdoms provided buffer zones against horse archer raids. Trade replaced conquest as primary policy tool. The empire that had devoured the Mediterranean learned caution from desert teachers. Modern archaeology has revealed the battle's physical footprint. Metal detectors near Carrhae village find Roman armor fragments, Parthian arrowheads, fragments of eagle standards. Bone analysis shows death patterns consistent with arrow wounds. Isotope studies of teeth confirm Syrian origin for many skeletons, supporting ancient accounts of legion composition. The killing field still bears witness to that day in 53 BC. The real lesson was strategic. Rome had built its empire fighting enemies who stood still, Greek phalanxes, Gallic warriors, Germanic tribes that met steel with steel. Parthian horse archers fought differently. They used space as a weapon, mobility as armor, patience as a siege engine. They turned Roman strength into Roman weakness. Heavy infantry became sitting targets. Disciplined formations became death traps. Traditional tactics became suicide missions. But there was something else in the dust at Carrhae. Something that explains why this battle haunted Roman dreams long after greater defeats were forgotten. Recent excavations have uncovered a mass grave containing over 300 skeletons, all Roman legionaries based on equipment fragments, all killed by arrows based on bone trauma. All buried facing east toward Parthia. The Parthians had honored their dead enemies with proper burial, arranged them to face their homeland across the desert wastes. Even in victory, Surena had shown respect for brave soldiers who died far from home. Rome never forgot that strange mercy, or the young general who granted it before politics claimed his head. The eagles flew east and never returned.